I'm Amber Mitchell, 35 years old, and I never thought I'd be the one sitting alone on a Saturday night scrolling through social media while my entire family celebrated without me. But there I was, staring at my phone as my sister Rachel's latest Instagram post appeared on my screen. My parents' 40th anniversary party, an event I'd been explicitly forbidden from attending. The photo showed them all raising champagne glasses, toasting to family loyalty, the one value they'd always claimed was sacred. I couldn't breathe as I realized what this actually meant. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt excluded by the people who were supposed to love you most. Trust me, what happens next in my story might make you feel better about your own family drama. To understand why being excluded from my parents' anniversary celebration cut so deep, you need to know the Mitchell family dynamic. I'm the middle child, sandwiched between my older sister Rachel and younger brother Kyle. And if you know anything about birth order psychology, you can probably guess I've spent my entire life fighting for attention and recognition. My parents, Harold and Patricia Mitchell, built their reputation in Westbrook Heights, one of the most affluent neighborhoods in our city. Dad's real estate development company made him a prominent figure in local business circles, while Mom's involvement in elite charity organizations secured her position in high society. They cared deeply about image, perhaps more than anything else. Rachel, 3 years my senior, was the golden child from day one. Valedictorian, homecoming queen, Ivy League graduate, she ticked all the boxes my parents valued. She followed Dad into real estate, working directly under him at Mitchell Properties, and married James Harper, the son of Dad's golf buddy and business associate. Kyle, 2 years younger than me, was the baby of the family, perpetually forgiven for his mistakes and coddled even into adulthood. His charm and boyish smile got him out of every responsibility, while his business failures were constantly cushioned by my parents' financial support. And then there was me, the black sheep, despite my own considerable success. After graduating with honors in marketing, I built a career at Forbade, one of the country's leading technology firms. I bought my own condo by 27, earned 6 figures by 30, and was recently promoted to executive marketing director. Yet somehow, my achievements always seemed to fall short in my parents' eyes. "Why can't you find a nice man and settle down like your sister?" Mom would ask during our rare phone conversations. "Tech marketing isn't a real career," Dad would comment dismissively. "It's all smoke and mirrors." 3 years ago, the first major betrayal happened. Kyle had launched another doomed startup, a meal delivery service that was hemorrhaging money from day one. My parents had already invested heavily, but Kyle needed an additional $50,000 to keep it afloat. "It's just until we secure the next round of funding," Kyle assured me over coffee, his blue eyes wide with that familiar pleading look. "Mom and Dad are tapped out right now with the new vacation property." Against my better judgment, I transferred the money, my down payment for a larger condo, into Kyle's business account. I had him sign a promissory note, but we both knew it was a formality to make me feel better. Family helps family, right? 6 months later, Kyle's business folded. The $50,000 vanished. When I gently brought it up at Thanksgiving dinner, the temperature in the room plummeted. "You're really going to nickel and dime your brother?" Mom asked, appalled. "After all we've done for you?" Dad was more direct. "That was your investment risk. Don't come crying when your gamble doesn't pay off." Kyle looked at his plate, shamefaced but silent. Rachel smirked behind her wine glass. The money was never mentioned again, except by me, which only earned me the label of materialistic and ungenerous. Then there was Rachel. My sister's talent for undermining me was unparalleled. In high school, she accidentally told Jason Brooks, my crush of 2 years, that I only liked him because he resembled my cousin. In college, she applied for the same competitive internship I'd been working toward, despite having zero interest in that career path, then declined it after I was rejected. At work functions where our industries overlapped, she'd introduce me as her little sister who does something with computers. Yet I kept trying. I attended every family event, brought thoughtful gifts, listened to their problems, celebrated their victories. I maintained the fiction that we were a close-knit family, even as the evidence mounted that I was merely tolerated, not valued. What I didn't know until recently was that my family's dysfunction ran deeper than emotional manipulation. A month ago, through a professional connection, I discovered information about my father's business practices that would forever change our family dynamics and set in motion the events that led to that Instagram photo that broke my heart. 2 weeks before my parents' anniversary party, I was reviewing potential partnership opportunities for Tech Forward when I came across a familiar name in our compliance department's flagged list: Mitchell Properties, my father's company. My colleague Benjamin Winters, head of corporate compliance, noticed my reaction. "You're Harold Mitchell's daughter, right?" he asked, his expression carefully neutral. "I should probably recuse you from this review." "What review?" I asked, my stomach already nodding. "Why is my father's company flagged?" Benjamin hesitated, then sighed. "Look, this hasn't gone public yet, but there are some serious red flags in Mitchell Properties' financial disclosures. We were considering a tech infrastructure deal with them, but..." He trailed off. "But what?" I pressed. "There are irregularities suggesting artificial inflation of property values, Amber, and potentially money moving through shell companies to hide losses. Our due diligence team found enough to warrant alerting the proper authorities." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. There has to be a mistake. "I hope so," Benjamin said kindly. "But you should know that this investigation is happening. And given your position here and relationship to Mitchell Properties, you need to be extremely careful about any appearance of conflict." That evening, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. The imposing colonial sat on 3 manicured acres, a monument to my father's success. Or perhaps, as I was beginning to suspect, his fraud. Dad was in his study, glass of scotch in hand, when I entered without knocking. "What's this about Tech Forward investigating Mitchell Properties?" I demanded, skipping any greeting. His face darkened instantly, eyes narrowing. "Who have you been talking to? Is it true?" I pressed. "Are you manipulating property values? Creating shell companies?" "Keep your voice down," he hissed, getting up to close the door. "Your mother doesn't need to hear this nonsense." "It's not nonsense if it's true, Dad. Do you understand what you're risking? Prison time. Everything you and Mom have built." "Don't be so dramatic," he cut in, his voice low but fierce. "Business is complicated. Sometimes you have to be creative with accounting to weather difficult periods." "Creative accounting?" I echoed. "That's what you're calling fraud now?" His face flushed with anger. "I built this company from nothing. Everything we have, including that fancy education that got you your job, came from my hard work. I won't be lectured by my own daughter who's never had to make the hard choices to provide for a family." "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "if this investigation moves forward, you could lose everything. You need to get ahead of this. Make it right before what?" he snapped. "Before you run to your corporate friends and sell out your own family? Is that why you're here? To threaten me? I'm trying to help you." "Help?" He laughed bitterly. "The only help I need from you is your silence. Family protects family, Amber. Or have you forgotten that basic loyalty?" My mother appeared at the door, her face tight with concern. "What's going on? I could hear you from upstairs." Dad turned to her. "Amber's company is looking into our business. And instead of warning us privately or recusing herself, she's here making accusations." Mom's eyes widened, then narrowed as she turned to me. "Is this true, Amber?" "I just found out today. I defended myself. I came straight here to warn you both." "To warn us or to judge us?" Mom asked, her voice taking on that familiar, disappointed tone. "Your father has given his life to this business, to providing for this family. How dare you come into our home and throw accusations around?" "I'm not accusing," I said desperately. "I'm trying to help before this becomes a legal nightmare." "By threatening exposure?" Dad demanded. "That's not help, that's betrayal." The conversation deteriorated from there. By the time I left an hour later, both my parents had made their positions clear. I was to use my influence at Tech Forward to bury the investigation, or I would no longer be welcome in the family. The next day, Rachel called. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she demanded without preamble. "Dad didn't sleep all night because of your little ambush." "Rachel, do you know what's happening at the company?" I asked. "This is serious. What I know is that you've always been jealous of Dad's success. of my relationship with him. And now you're trying to destroy what he's built because you can't stand not being the center of attention for once. That's insane, I replied, genuinely shocked. I'm trying to prevent a scandal that could ruin all of us. Save it, Rachel snapped. I've already spoken to the rest of the family. Everyone knows you're just doing this for attention. Over the next week, I received a series of increasingly cold text messages from extended family members. My cousin Taylor, once my closest childhood friend, wrote, "Heard you're having issues. Maybe get some help instead of taking it out on your family?" Kyle's message was more sympathetic, but equally dismissive. "Sis, whatever you think you know, just let it go. Family first, remember?" Then came the email from my mother. Subject line, anniversary celebration. Amber, your father and I have decided it would be best if you didn't attend our anniversary party next Saturday. Your recent behavior has caused us significant distress, and we want to celebrate our milestone without negative energy. I hope you understand and will use this time to reflect on your priorities and loyalty to this family. Mom, I called immediately. No answer. I texted both parents. Read, but not responded to. I even drove to their house again, only to be told by the housekeeper that they weren't available. It was happening again, the family closing ranks, but this time I wasn't just being sidelined, I was being excised completely. The night of my parents' anniversary party arrived with painful inevitability. I sat alone in my condo, alternating between mindless television and obsessive checking of social media. By 8 o'clock, the first photos began appearing. My cousin Haley posted a selfie in the driveway of my parents' house, captioned, "Ready to celebrate 40 amazing years of Harold and Patricia. Relationship goals." Next came my Aunt Susan's post, an elaborate flower arrangement at the entrance, with the caption, "Everything perfect as always for my brother's special day." I poured a glass of wine, then another, as I scrolled through more posts. The event planner my mother had hired shared professional photos of the transformed backyard white tent, crystal chandeliers, ice sculpture, string quartet. My parents had spared no expense for their celebration. Just after 10 p.m., Rachel posted the photo that shattered me completely. The entire family gathered around my parents, Rachel and her husband front and center, Kyle and his girlfriend Madison beside them, aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents' closest friends. Champagne glasses raised high, faces glowing with happiness. Rachel's caption, "Celebrating 40 years of marriage and the true meaning of family loyalty. So blessed to be part of this legacy of love. Family first." The comments poured in. "Beautiful family. What a perfect night. You Mitchells know how to celebrate." Then my great-aunt Mildred commented, "Lovely evening. Missed seeing Amber though. Such a shame she was too busy to attend her own parents' anniversary." Too busy? I stared at the screen in disbelief. They had told everyone I chose not to come. My phone rang, startling me. A name I wasn't expecting. Jessica Lindstrom. Jessica was my mother's friend's daughter. Someone I'd known since childhood, but wasn't particularly close to. "Amber, are you okay?" Jessica asked when I answered. "I'm fine," I said automatically. "Why?" "I just left your parents' party. I overheard something I think you should know." My heart raced. "What is it?" "I was getting my coat, and I overheard your parents talking with their lawyer in your father's study. The door wasn't completely closed." Jessica paused. "They're changing their will, Amber. They're removing you entirely." The floor seemed to drop beneath me. "Are you sure?" "The lawyer, I think his name is Greenberg, was advising them on how to structure it so you couldn't contest it. Something about a token dollar amount being better than nothing at all. Your father said he wanted to make sure you couldn't profit from disloyalty." "I'm so sorry, Amber. It seemed wrong, and I thought you should know." After Jessica's call, I sat in stunned silence. The complete erasure of me from the family was underway, not just from celebrations, but from their legacy. My phone pinged with a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Madison, Kyle's girlfriend. Kyle doesn't know I'm texting you. I thought you should see these messages from the family group chat you're not in." Attached were screenshots. Rachel. "I still can't believe Amber tried to get Dad investigated. Who does that to their own father?" Mom. "Let's not discuss this tonight. This is a celebration." Aunt Carol. "I always thought she was a bit off. Remember when she accused your father of playing favorites at Christmas that year? Rachel. She's always been jealous, especially of me and Dad's relationship. Kyle. Guys, can we not do this? She's still my sister. Rachel. Blood doesn't mean loyalty, Kyle. She made her choice. Dad. Enough. The matter is closed. Amber has removed herself from this family through her actions. Let's focus on celebrating tonight. I stared at the exchange, bile rising in my throat. They weren't just excluding me, they were actively rewriting who I was, turning me into a villain in their narrative. The sister consumed by jealousy, the daughter bent on destruction, the family member who couldn't be trusted. And everyone was accepting this version of reality without question, even Kyle, who managed only the weakest defense before falling silent. As I scrolled through more photos of the celebration, the elaborate cake, the dance floor filled with laughing relatives, my father's speech captured in a video clip where he extolled the importance of standing together against outside forces, I realized this wasn't just about the anniversary party or even the will. This was about erasing me completely. The morning after the anniversary party, I woke with a clarity that cut through my emotional hangover. If my family was reconstructing reality to exclude me, I needed to understand the true reality they were hiding. I called Jessica and asked to meet for coffee. She agreed, selecting a cafe far from our mutual acquaintances' usual haunts. I felt awful all night, Jessica admitted, stirring her latte nervously. Your family's always seemed so perfect from the outside. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I need to know everything you heard, I said. Not just about the will. Jessica glanced around, then leaned forward. After I heard them with the lawyer, I started paying attention. Your sister Rachel was talking to your mom later, on the patio. I was around the corner, and they didn't see me. She hesitated. Rachel said something like, Amber's always been a problem, but now she's a liability. She'd turn on all of us if she knew everything. Knew what? I pressed. I don't know exactly. But your mom said, she can't prove anything. It's her word against the family's. No one would believe her anyway. We've made sure of that. Jessica frowned. What have they been doing, Amber? I explained about the investigation into my father's business, watching Jessica's eyes widen. There's more, she said reluctantly. At one point, I overheard Rachel telling her husband that she's been managing your reputation in the family for years. She specifically said, I've been controlling Amber's narrative since we were kids. Like it was some kind of long-term project. This confirmed a suspicion I'd held but dismissed as paranoia. Rachel hadn't just been a favored sibling. She'd been actively working against me. I met Benjamin from compliance for lunch later that day, away from the office. I shouldn't be telling you this, he said, after ordering a sandwich he wouldn't touch. But the investigation into Mitchell Properties is expanding. It's not just inflated property values. There's evidence of kickbacks, bribes to city officials for zoning changes, and tax evasion. Amber, this could get very ugly. Very fast. Would I be implicated? I asked. My voice steady despite my racing heart. Not if you had no knowledge or involvement, Benjamin said carefully. But there's something else you should know. When we started looking into the company's leadership structure, we found something interesting. Your sister Rachel is listed as Chief Financial Officer. Has been for 3 years. The revelation hit me like a truck. Rachel wasn't just working for Dad, she was directly responsible for the company's finances. There was no way she didn't know about the fraud. In fact, given her position, she was likely orchestrating much of it. Do you still have access to any family accounts or emails? Benjamin asked. Anything that might help you understand what you're dealing with? I'd almost forgotten about the old family email account. Years ago, my parents had set up a shared Mitchell family email for online accounts and subscriptions. I'd stopped using it after college, but I still knew the password, my grandmother's maiden name and birth year. That evening, I logged in for the first time in nearly a decade. To my surprise, the account was still active, filled with thousands of unread messages. Most were junk, but as I filtered through, I found correspondence between family members who'd apparently forgotten I had access. An email from Rachel to my parents, dated 3 years ago, spoke with Amber's ex-boyfriend Mike today, casually mentioned her emotional issues during college. He seemed concerned. Doubt he'll be proposing anytime soon. From my mother to my Aunt Susan, last Christmas. Amber's bringing that new boyfriend to dinner. Rachel says he's after her money, works at some startup that's failing. We'll feel out the situation. From Rachel to Kyle, 6 months ago. Don't tell Amber about the family trust restructuring. Dad doesn't want her to know her portion has been reduced. We'll deal with her reaction when necessary. Email after email revealed a pattern of manipulation, lies, and strategic exclusion spanning years. My relationships, career moves, and family standing had been systematically undermined through a campaign orchestrated primarily by Rachel, with my parents' knowledge and approval. Most disturbing were emails from the past month, after I'd discovered the investigation into Mitchell Properties. From Rachel to Dad, if Amber knows about the West Side Project and the accounting issues, we have a serious problem. She's always been sanctimonious about doing the right thing. We need to discredit her before she becomes a whistleblower, Dad's response. Already spoke with Tom Greenberg about protecting our assets. If she tries anything, we'll make sure she has nothing to gain and everything to lose. Rachel, I've already started reaching out to family members. By the time this is over, anything Amber says will sound like the bitter accusations of an unstable, jealous daughter. My hands shook as I forwarded these emails to my personal account. This wasn't just family dysfunction, it was a coordinated conspiracy to protect the family's criminal activities by destroying my credibility and cutting me out completely. I was about to log out when a new email notification appeared, a message from Kyle to my parents, sent just hours ago. I don't feel right about what happened with Amber. She deserves to know the truth. If you don't tell her, I will. I stared at the screen, a small spark of hope flickering to life. Maybe I wasn't completely alone in this after all. They're not just cutting you out, they're setting you up as the scapegoat, Leah, my best friend since college, said as she paced my living room. I'd shown her everything I'd discovered. I still can't believe Rachel's been actively sabotaging me for years, I said, my voice hollow. Who does that to their own sister? Someone protecting a massive fraud, Leah replied bluntly. Amber, you need to protect yourself before they destroy you completely. She was right. My initial instinct had been to confront my family with what I knew, demand explanations, perhaps even find reconciliation. But the emails had shown me that was a fantasy. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a calculated campaign to preserve wealth and freedom at my expense. What do? I asked. You gather evidence. You build allies. And you strike strategically, not emotionally, Leah said, her background as a corporate attorney showing. Who else might know about your father's business practices but feel conflicted about them? I thought about it. My father's longtime accountant, Richard Weber. He retired last year, but he handled all the Mitchell Properties accounts for decades. He always seemed uncomfortable at family events in recent years. Start there, Leah advised. But be careful. Don't accuse, just gather information. The next day, I called Richard Weber and invited him to lunch, claiming I needed financial advice. He agreed, though his voice sounded wary. We met at a quiet restaurant outside town. Richard had aged since I'd last seen him, more gray, more lines around his eyes. He ordered a scotch at 11:30 a.m. I wondered if I'd hear from one of you Mitchells eventually, he said after taking a long sip. Though I expected it might be your father's lawyer with a cease and desist. Why would Dad send you a cease and desist? I asked carefully. Richard studied me. You don't know, do you? Or are you recording this conversation for your father? Richard, I said, maintaining eye contact. I've been cut out of my family for asking questions about Mitchell Properties' finances. I'm not here on anyone's behalf, but my own. He was silent for a long moment, then sighed deeply. I retired early because I refused to sign off on financial statements I knew were fraudulent. Your father said he would find someone more flexible. Apparently, that person was your sister. Rachel has no accounting background, I said. She doesn't need one if she's willing to do what your father asks without question. Richard took another drink. I worked for your father for 32 years, Amber. I helped build that company, but the last 5 years. He shook his head. The shell companies, the inflated valuations, the offshore accounts, I couldn't be part of it anymore. Do you have documentation? I asked. Richard's expression hardened. Why would you want that? Because my family is trying to frame me as unstable and jealous to discredit anything I might say about the business, I explained. They've already written me out of the will and are spreading lies about me to everyone we know. After more conversation and another scotch, Richard agreed to provide copies of key documents he'd kept as insurance. The records showed years of increasingly brazen financial manipulation, much of it beginning right around the time Rachel took a leadership role in the company. That afternoon, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Aunt Diana. I heard you've been difficult. We should talk. I've been there." Diana Mitchell, my father's sister, who had been estranged from the family for over 15 years. I had vague childhood memories of a tall woman with my father's eyes and a loud laugh who disappeared after some never-discussed family conflict. My father had forbidden us from contacting her. We arranged to meet at her apartment the next day. Diana, now in her 60s, had the same commanding presence I remembered, though her once dark hair was silver and cropped short. "So they've finally turned on you too," she said after hugging me hello. "I've been expecting this call for years." Over the next 2 hours, Diana revealed a family history I'd never known. My grandfather, the revered family patriarch I barely remembered, had built the initial family fortune through similarly questionable means. When Diana had threatened to expose him after discovering financial documents, she had been systematically isolated, discredited, and finally cut off completely. "Your father learned from the best," Diana said grimly. "First, they isolate you. Then they discredit you. Then they replace the narrative entirely, until you become the villain in the family story." "That's exactly what's happening," I said, feeling a chill at the parallel. "The Mitchell family has been protecting its secrets for generations, Amber. Your father didn't invent this playbook, he inherited it." As I was leaving Diana's apartment, my phone rang. "Kyle, can we meet?" he asked, his voice tight. "Alone. Don't tell anyone." We met at a park across town. Kyle looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. "I can't sleep," he said immediately. "The things they're saying about you, the way they're acting, it's not right." "What exactly are they saying, Kyle?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Rachel's telling everyone you've had mental health issues for years, but hid them well. Dad is implying you're trying to extort money from the family by threatening to make false accusations about the business." "And you believe them?" I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. "I didn't want to," Kyle said miserably. "But they were so convincing." Mom was crying. "Dad showed us emails supposedly from your therapist." "I don't have a therapist, Kyle." "I know that now," he said. "I found out Rachel created a fake email account. She's been writing messages pretending to be concerned mental health professionals for months, establishing a paper trail." I was stunned by the elaborate deception. "Why are you telling me this now?" Kyle finally looked at me directly. "Because at the anniversary party, when they announced they were writing you out of the will, they were so cold about it. Like you never mattered at all. And I realized if they could do this to you, they could do it to anyone. Even me." I made a split-second decision. "Kyle, can I record this conversation? I need evidence of what's happening." He hesitated, then nodded. I started the recording app on my phone and placed it between us. For the next 30 minutes, Kyle detailed everything he knew about my parents' and Rachel's schemes, both financial and personal. As we were saying goodbye, Kyle gripped my arm. "Be careful, Amber. Rachel knows you're investigating. She's scared, and she's dangerous when she's scared." That warning proved prophetic. When I returned home that evening, I had a voicemail from Rachel. "I know what you're doing, Amber. Back off now, or I promise you'll regret it." Some family secrets should stay buried for everyone's protection. The threat was clear, but so was my path forward. This was no longer just about being excluded from an anniversary party. This was about exposing the truth before I was completely destroyed by my own family's lies. 1 week after my parents' anniversary party, the family war escalated from cold to scorching hot. I woke to find 17 missed calls and over 30 text messages from extended family members and childhood friends. Each message expressed some variation of concern, disappointment, or outright anger. "I always thought you were better than this," wrote my cousin Haley. "Making up lies about your own father? If you need help, there are resources," texted my mother's friend Barbara. But attacking your family isn't the answer. I called my Aunt Susan, the only person who'd left a somewhat neutral message asking me to call her back. "What exactly am I being accused of now?" I asked when she answered. Susan's voice was tight. "Rachel sent an email to the entire family last night. She said you've been suffering from paranoid delusions and have become fixated on destroying your father's reputation out of some misguided revenge fantasy. She included excerpts from your supposed therapist's emails expressing concern about your mental state." "I don't have a therapist, Susan," I said firmly. "Those emails are fake." There was a pause. How would Rachel get fake emails from a therapist who doesn't exist? "Because she created them to discredit me," I explained. "Kyle confirmed it." "Kyle told us you've been pressuring him to take your side," Susan replied. "Patricia is beside herself with worry about him." It was useless. The narrative had been established. The family had accepted it. And anything I said now would only be interpreted as further evidence of my delusions. Later that morning, I received a formal letter from Thomas Greenberg, my parents' attorney, instructing me to cease and desist all defamatory statements regarding Harold and Patricia Mitchell and Mitchell Properties. The letter threatened legal action if I continued to spread malicious falsehoods within the family and business community. I forwarded the letter to Leah, who responded immediately. "They're trying to scare you into silence." Classic intimidation tactic. That afternoon, I returned home from a grocery run to find my apartment door slightly ajar. Heart pounding, I called the building security before entering. Inside, I found chaos drawers emptied onto the floor, couch cushions slashed, electronics smashed. My laptop was gone, along with my external hard drives where I'd stored copies of the Mitchell Properties documents Richard had given me. The building security guard checked the footage and called me over. "Take a look at this, Miss Mitchell." The grainy video showed a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses entering my apartment using a key. Despite the disguise, I recognized him immediately. "James Harper, Rachel's husband. Do you know this person?" the guard asked. I hesitated, then nodded. "My brother-in-law." "You want to file a police report?" I did, though I knew it would pour gasoline on an already raging fire. When the police took my statement, I provided James's name and contact information, explaining he had no permission to enter my home. That evening, my phone rang with a call from Benjamin at Tech Forward. "Amber, I need to see you in the office tomorrow morning," he said, his voice unusually formal. "HR will be joining us." "What's this about?" I asked, though I already suspected. There have been concerns raised about potential conflicts of interest regarding the Mitchell Properties investigation. I can't say more over the phone. The next morning, I sat across from Benjamin and Gretchen from HR, my hands steady despite my racing heart. "We've received a call from your father," Gretchen began without preamble. "He's concerned you've been using your position at Tech Forward to access confidential information about his company for personal reasons." "That's not true," I said calmly. Benjamin approached me about a potential conflict of interest, which I disclosed immediately. "Your father also mentioned concerns about your emotional stability," Gretchen continued, looking uncomfortable. "He suggested you might be under significant stress that could be affecting your judgment." "I'm being placed on leave, aren't I?" I said, cutting to the chase. Benjamin nodded reluctantly. "Administrative leave with pay while we sort this out." "I'm sorry, Amber." I tried to push back, but your father apparently has friends on the board. As I cleaned out my desk, I received a text from Andrew, the man I'd been dating for the past 8 months. "We need to talk." We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. Andrew couldn't look me in the eye as he stirred his untouched coffee. "I got a call from your sister yesterday," he finally said. "Let me guess," I replied wearily. "She told you I'm unstable, potentially dangerous, and you should stay away for your own good." Andrew looked surprised. "Actually, she threatened me, said if I continued seeing you, she'd make sure my startup lost its funding. She mentioned she's friends with 3 people on my investor board." "And you're breaking up with me because of that threat?" I asked, a new kind of pain blooming in my chest. "I've put everything into this company, Amber," he said miserably. 3 years of my life, all my savings. I can't risk losing it all." "You could stand up to her," I suggested. "Call her bluff." He finally met my eyes. "I'm not sure it is a bluff. She knew details about our investor discussions that aren't public knowledge. She has the connections she's claiming to have, He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I'm sorry. Later that day, going through my financial accounts to assess my situation, I discovered something chilling. Several of my investment accounts showed recent activity I hadn't authorized attempts to transfer funds that had been flagged by the fraud department. When I called the bank, they confirmed someone had tried to access my accounts using my social security number and mother's maiden name. How did they fail? I asked. The security questions didn't match, the representative explained. They knew your mother's maiden name, but got your first pet's name wrong. My family knew my mother's maiden name, of course, but they didn't know I'd lied on the security question. My first pet had been a goldfish named Bubbles, but I always used my imaginary childhood dog Ranger for security questions, a private joke only Leah knew about. My family had been monitoring my finances for years through shared accounts, but now they were actively trying to drain them. The realization made my blood run cold. That evening, Kyle called me in a panic. Amber, they know I've been talking to you. Rachel installed some spyware on my phone. She's seen our text messages. How do you know? I asked, pacing my vandalized living room. She confronted me at dinner. Called me a traitor, Dad said. His voice broke. Dad said I'm just as dead to him as you are if I don't get my priorities straight. They're cutting me off financially unless I sign an affidavit saying you coerced and manipulated me. Are you going to sign it? I asked quietly. The long silence was answer enough. I'm sorry, Amber. I don't have your courage. My business is failing. My apartment is financed through Dad's company. And it's okay, Kyle, I interrupted, feeling strangely calm. Do what you need to do. After we hung up, I sat in the wreckage of my apartment and assessed my situation. In just 1 week, I had been formally disowned by my parents, become the subject of a family-wide smear campaign, had my apartment burglarized, been put on administrative leave from my job, lost my relationship, had my financial accounts targeted, lost my only family ally. As I contemplated my next move, I received an email notification, another post from Rachel on Instagram. This one showed her and my parents at their country club, all smiles, with the caption, "Family is everything. So grateful for parents who taught us the meaning of integrity and loyalty." 2. Blessed. Something inside me hardened into resolve. This wasn't just about defending myself anymore. This was about exposing the truth, whatever the cost. My family had declared total war. It was time to fight back with everything I had. They've taken everything from me, I told Leah and Diana over dinner at Leah's apartment. My reputation, my job, my relationship, my family connections. They're trying to bankrupt me and potentially frame me for their crimes. Not everything, Diana corrected firmly. You still have your integrity, your intelligence, and your courage. Plus, you have us. And most importantly, Leah added, placing a folder on the table, you have evidence. Over the past 2 days, we'd been compiling everything I had gathered Richard Weber's financial documents. The email exchanges between family members, Kyle's recorded confession, the security footage of James breaking into my apartment, and the bank's records of unauthorized access attempts on my accounts. The question is, Diana said, how do we use this most effectively? We debated various approaches. Go to the authorities immediately? Confront my parents with the evidence? Take it to the media? We need to be strategic, Leah cautioned. Your father has connections in local law enforcement and with the DA's office. If we don't do this right, they could bury it. And Rachel has spent years establishing you as unstable and vindictive, Diana added. Any move you make will be framed that way unless we change the narrative first. We decided on a multi-pronged approach. First, I would secure legal protection for myself. Leah connected me with Catherine Zhao, a former colleague who specialized in whistleblower cases. After reviewing my evidence, Catherine agreed to represent me and helped me file a formal whistleblower report with the SEC regarding Mitchell Properties' financial irregularities. This gives you legal protections, Catherine explained. If they retaliate further, it strengthens our case. Next, I contacted Benjamin at Tech Forward and requested a confidential meeting outside the office. He agreed, and I showed him the evidence I'd gathered, emphasizing the attempts to frame me as unstable to discredit any statements I might make about Mitchell Properties. I'm not asking you to take my side, I told him. I'm just asking you to let the evidence speak for itself and to protect me from further retaliation within the company. Benjamin studied the documents carefully. This is extensive and deeply concerning. He looked up at me. I'll take this to our general counsel. Your administrative leave may continue, but I'll make sure the reason is recorded as potential conflict of interest requiring investigation, rather than anything reflecting on your mental state or job performance. The third step was rebuilding my support network. I reached out to family, friends who had known me my entire life, people whose opinion of me wasn't entirely shaped by Rachel's narratives. One by one, I met with them, not to accuse my family, but to express confusion about what was happening and ask for their perspective. I'm just trying to understand. I told my parents' longtime friend Margaret. They've cut me off completely for asking questions about financial practices I discovered through work. Margaret, who had known me since I was a baby, frowned. That doesn't sound like you, Amber. Rachel told us you were making wild accusations and threatening your father with exposure if he didn't give you money. Does that sound like something I would do? I asked simply. Her frown deepened. No, it doesn't, actually. I didn't show most people the evidence I'd gathered. Just planted seeds of doubt about the narrative my family was spreading. For a few key allies, however, I shared more, including Diana, who connected me with other relatives who had been similarly marginalized by the Mitchell family over the years. The most unexpected ally emerged when I received a call from an unknown number. Amber Mitchell? This is Howard Brennan. I nearly dropped my phone. Howard Brennan was my father's business partner of 25 years, essentially his right-hand man at Mitchell Properties. Mr. Brennan, I managed. This is unexpected. I imagine so, he replied, his gravelly voice unreadable. I need to speak with you. In person, not on the phone. We met at his lake house, well outside the city. Howard, in his 70s now, had always intimidated me with his stern demeanor and piercing gaze. Today, however, he looked tired and concerned. I've known your father since business school, he began after offering me a drink. Built this company with him from a two-man operation to what it is today. I've overlooked a lot over the years, justified a lot. He sighed heavily. But what's happening now? The shell companies, the bribes, the falsified valuations, and what they're doing to you. It's gone too far. Why are you telling me this? I asked cautiously. Because I'm dying, Amber. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less. He stated it matter-of-factly. I've got nothing left to lose, and I find I want to clear my conscience before I go. Howard provided me with internal documents I never could have accessed otherwise. Board meeting minutes, private communications between my father and city officials, bank transfers to offshore account. Most damning of all, the emails between my father and Rachel discussing how to structure the company to insulate themselves from liability, while potentially shifting blame to other executives, including Howard if investigations ever occur. They were setting me up, Howard said bitterly. After 30 years, I was to be their scapegoat. I'm sorry, I said, genuinely moved by his situation. Don't be sorry for me, he replied. I made my choices. Just make sure they don't get away with it. Armed with this new evidence, Catherine helped me prepare a comprehensive dossier for federal investigators. Meanwhile, I learned through Diana that my parents and Rachel were planning to attend the annual Westbrook Heights Charity Gala, the social event of the season where they would undoubtedly continue their campaign to cement their version of events. They'll expect you to hide away in shame, Diana said. The last thing they'll expect is for you to show up and look them in the eye. It's too public for them to make a scene, Leah added, and too important for their social standing for them to leave. The plan took shape. I would make a carefully calculated appearance at the gala, not to confront my family publicly, but to subtly demonstrate I wasn't destroyed or in hiding. Meanwhile, Catherine would use the event to quietly meet with key individuals who needed to see our evidence, taking advantage of the gathering of business leaders, legal professionals, and community figures who would be in attendance. I prepared meticulously for the confrontation I knew would come. I edited Kyle's recorded confession to include only the key revelations about the family's campaign against me, leaving out anything that might implicate him personally. I rehearsed calm, measured responses to likely accusations. I selected a dress that projected confidence and success rather than desperation or anger. The night before the gala, I received an anonymous email with a single line of text. They're planning to announce Rachel's promotion to president of Mitchell Properties tomorrow night. The dynasty continues. I forwarded it to Catherine, who replied immediately. Perfect timing. The investigators are ready to move. See you tomorrow. The Westbrook Heights Charity Gala had been a fixture of our community's social calendar for decades. Held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, it brought together the city's elite for an evening of performative generosity and strategic networking. My parents had never missed it, and had ensured their children's attendance was equally consistent once we reached adulthood. This year, I arrived alone, having purchased my own ticket rather than attending as part of the Mitchell family table. I chose my moment carefully, waiting until the cocktail hour was well underway before making my entrance. The room was a sea of designer gowns and tuxedos, crystal chandeliers casting a flattering glow over the assembled power players of Westbrook Heights. I spotted my parents, immediately my father, in animated conversation with the mayor, my mother laughing with the chairwoman of the hospital board. Rachel stood nearby, resplendent in a red gown, her husband James at her side looking uncomfortable. Kyle and Madison were nowhere to be seen. I felt the ripple effect of my arrival, the double takes, the whispers behind hands, the subtle pointing in my direction. I kept my head high, my expression pleasant but neutral as I made my way to the bar. Catherine was already there, elegant in navy blue, pretending we were casual acquaintances as we exchanged a brief greeting. It took less than 5 minutes for my mother to approach me, her social smile firmly in place, though her eyes were cold. "Amber," she said, voice pitched just loud enough for those nearby to hear. "This is unexpected." "Hello, Mother," I replied calmly. "You look lovely tonight." She leaned closer, dropping her voice. "What do you think you're doing here? Haven't you caused enough embarrassment?" "I'm supporting the Children's Hospital," I said, maintaining my composure. "Same as everyone else." "You need to leave," she hissed. "Your father will be making an important announcement tonight, and we don't need your drama overshadowing it." "Rachel's promotion to president," I said with a nod. "Yes, I heard. Quite an accomplishment for someone with no finance or real estate background." My mother's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected me to know. Before she could respond, my father appeared at her side, his hand gripping her elbow with visible tension. "What's she doing here?" he demanded, not addressing me directly. "Supporting the Children's Hospital," my mother repeated my words. Apparently, my father finally looked at me, his expression a careful mask of concern rather than the anger I knew he felt. "Amber, this isn't appropriate, given your condition." "My condition?" I echoed, raising an eyebrow. I wasn't aware I had one, unless you mean my inconvenient habit of asking questions about financial irregularities. His jaw tightened. "This isn't the place for this conversation." "I agree completely," I said, smiling as I spotted Catherine making her way toward the district attorney across the room. "Enjoy your evening." I moved away before they could respond, circulating through the crowd with deliberate casualness. Various acquaintances approached me, some with genuine concern, others with barely concealed curiosity about the family drama they'd heard whispers of. To each, I gave the same measured response. "There's been a misunderstanding within the family that's gotten out of hand. I'm hoping we can resolve it soon." From across the room, I watched Catherine speaking intently with the district attorney, then with a state senator known for his anti-corruption stance, then with the editor of the business section of the city newspaper. Each conversation ended with a discreet exchange of what appeared to be business cards, but which I knew contained a secure link to our evidence. As dinner was announced, I found myself seated at a table with several of my parents' social circle, a strategic placement by the event organizers who were unaware of the family rift. My father's face darkened when he saw the arrangement, but in full view of the city's elite, he could hardly make a scene. Throughout the meal, I maintained a pleasant demeanor, deflecting questions about my family with practiced ease. I noticed several business associates approaching my father during the courses, their expressions concerned as they spoke in hushed tones. After each conversation, my father's face grew more strained, his glances toward me more frequent and hostile. Rachel, sensing something amiss, began circulating during dessert, moving from table to table with practiced charm. When she reached my table, her smile was brittle. "Amber," she said sweetly, placing a hand on my shoulder that to observers would appear affectionate. "Could I speak with you privately for a moment?" "Of course," I replied, rising to follow her to a quiet alcove off the main ballroom. The moment we were alone, Rachel's facade dropped. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "Who have you been talking to?" "I'm attending a charity event, Rachel." "Same as you." "Don't play dumb," she snapped. "Harrison Blake just told Dad the SEC is asking questions about the West Side development. Judge Keating suddenly can't make Dad's announcement." "What have you done?" "Perhaps you should be asking what you and Dad have done," I replied evenly, "and what the consequences might be." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "You ungrateful bitch. After everything this family has given you." "Given me?" I interrupted, finally allowing some emotion to color my voice. "You've spent years undermining me, lying about me, manipulating everyone against me. And for what? So you could be Daddy's favorite? So you could take over a company built on fraud? You have no proof of anything," she hissed. "Actually, I have quite a lot of proof," I said. "Emails, financial records, witness testimony. Howard Brennan has been quite helpful." The color drained from Rachel's face. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "You know, it's interesting. I spent years thinking I was paranoid, that I was imagining the way you and Mom and Dad treated me differently. Thank you for confirming through your actions these past few weeks that it was real all along." Rachel grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "If you think you can destroy this family, you've already destroyed it," I cut in, pulling free of her grip. "I'm just making sure the right people pay for it." Our conversation was interrupted by a commotion from the main ballroom. We returned to find my father engaged in a heated discussion with two men in suits who had not been part of the gala. Even from a distance, their body language and my father's expression told me exactly who they were, federal agents. Rachel rushed to our father's side. I remained where I was, watching as the carefully constructed Mitchell family facade began to crumble in real time. My mother stood frozen, her social smile still fixed in place, though her eyes reflected panic. James edged away from his wife and father-in-law, clearly trying to distance himself from whatever was happening. The agent spoke briefly with my father, who nodded stiffly before addressing the crowd. "I apologize, but a pressing business matter requires my immediate attention. Please enjoy the rest of your evening." As my parents were escorted from the ballroom, Rachel turned to find me in the crowd. Her expression of pure hatred would have wounded me once. Now, I met her gaze steadily, unflinching. The most unexpected moment of the evening came as the crowd dissolved into buzzing speculation. Kyle, who had apparently arrived late, approached me with Madison at his side. "Did you do this?" he asked, his voice low. "I exposed the truth," I replied simply. "That's all." He swallowed hard, then straightened his shoulders. "Good." He looked around at the staring faces, then raised his voice slightly. "I'm standing with my sister on this. Anyone who wants the truth about Mitchell Properties can talk to me too." In that moment, as whispers raced through the room and Rachel stormed out in humiliation, I realized I'd won something more valuable than revenge. I'd reclaimed my narrative, my truth, and perhaps even a small piece of my family. 6 months after the gala confrontation that shattered the Mitchell family facade, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in gold and pink. The view wasn't as impressive as from my old condo, which I'd sold to cover legal fees and establish a fresh start, but it felt more like home than anywhere I'd lived before. The intervening months had brought seismic changes to every aspect of my life. Some painful, others unexpectedly healing. My father had been indicted on 17 counts of fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and bribery. The evidence Catherine and I had provided, combined with Howard Brennan's testimony and the documents he'd supplied, left little room for legal maneuvering. My father's arrest had made front-page news. The same papers that had once featured glowing profiles of the Mitchell Properties success story, now detailing its corrupt foundation. Rachel faced 4 counts of her own, primarily related to financial fraud and evidence tampering. Her carefully cultivated image as the perfect daughter and businesswoman had crumbled under scrutiny, revealing the ruthless ambition beneath. Her husband James had filed for divorce within weeks of her indictment, cutting a deal with prosecutors to testify about his role in breaking into my apartment in exchange for immunity. My mother had avoided criminal charges. There was insufficient evidence to prove her knowledge of the specific financial crimes, but the social consequences had been devastating for her. The same elite circles that had once embraced Patricia Mitchell now excluded her. Invitations dried up, and former friends crossed the street to avoid conversation. The family home had been sold to cover legal expenses and civil penalties, forcing her to move into a modest condominium. Mitchell Properties itself was in receivership, its legitimate assets being sold off to repay defrauded investors and satisfy government penalties. Dozens of employees had lost their jobs, collateral damage that still troubled me, though Catherine had helped establish a support fund for those affected. My own career had taken an unexpected turn. After the truth about my situation became public, Tech Forward had offered to reinstate me, but I'd declined. Instead, I'd accepted a position with a smaller company focused on ethical business practices and corporate accountability work that now felt meaningful in a way my previous role never had. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my reflections. I opened it to find Kyle, holding a bottle of wine, and looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. "Am I the first one here?" he asked, stepping inside. "As always," I replied with a smile. "Diana called to say she's running 15 minutes late, and Leah is stopping to pick up dessert." Kyle and I had rebuilt our relationship gradually over the past months, working through the hurt and betrayal to find a new understanding. He had testified against our father and Rachel, providing crucial details about family discussions and financial arrangements he'd been privy to. The decision had cost him his relationship with our mother, who viewed it as the ultimate betrayal, but had given him a freedom from family manipulation he'd never known before. "Madison's sorry she couldn't make it," Kyle said, opening the wine. "Her sister's baby shower. Tell her no worries." Next time, Diana arrived next, bearing a houseplant as always. "Homes need living things, Amber." Followed by Leah with an elaborate cake from my favorite bakery. As we settled around the dining table, mismatched chairs, simple settings, nothing like the elaborate dinners of my childhood, I felt a contentment that surprised me. I saw Rachel's sentencing was scheduled. Diana mentioned carefully as we ate. "How are you feeling about that?" I considered the question. Conflicted. I don't take pleasure in her suffering, but I needed the truth to come out. For my own sanity, if nothing else. "Have you had any contact with your mother?" Leah asked. "She sent a letter," I admitted, mostly justifying her actions, explaining that everything she did was to protect the family. But there was one line that seemed almost like an apology. "I never intended for things to go this far." "Classic Patricia," Diana snorted. "Taking responsibility without actually taking responsibility." "I don't expect more than that," I said. "And honestly, I don't need it anymore." That's the surprising part. After dinner, as we moved to the living room with coffee and cake, Kyle raised his glass. "A toast to chosen family," he said, "and to Amber, for having the courage to stand up for truth when it would have been easier to stay silent." As glasses clinked, I felt an unexpected surge of emotion. The past year had stripped away everything I thought defined me: family name, career, relationships, financial security. Yet sitting here, surrounded by people who valued me for who I truly was, I realized I'd gained something far more valuable: authenticity and peace. Later, after my guests had left, I found myself drawn back to the balcony. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. On my phone was the photo I'd saved from Rachel's Instagram post, the anniversary party I'd been forbidden to attend, my family raising glasses in a toast to loyalty. I kept it not as a reminder of betrayal, but as evidence of how far I'd come. The pain of that exclusion had been a catalyst for truth, forcing me to see my family as they truly were, rather than as I wished them to be. The journey had been brutal, the losses real and significant. Yet standing under the night sky, I felt a profound sense of liberation. I had survived my family's worst efforts to destroy me and emerged stronger, clearer, and surrounded by genuine love. Some families are born, others are built. Mine had been painfully dismantled, then carefully reconstructed with those who chose to remain and new members who entered my life when I needed them most. It wasn't what I'd expected, but it was real. And after a lifetime of manipulation and lies, Real was exactly what I needed. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic relationships to preserve your sanity? What gave you the strength to make that difficult choice? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. And share it with someone who might need to hear that sometimes standing alone for truth is better than being surrounded by comfortable lies. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands beside you when the truth comes to light.